Hi?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Just a second. There we
Okay.
go.
Let me go ahead and pin the chat so I could see your lovely audience, and then we'll do this. All right, dope. Oh, I got the
Awesome.
American flag too. I'm like,
Yeah, of course.
I'm a real conservative now.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna identify as conservative and just be the best conservative streamer on Twitch. Maybe that'll be my goal.
I mean, it's not hard. I mean, there's. I'll reckon being the best conservative streamer on Twitch is an easy feat. Should be able to. All right, let me just see here. Maybe like this, and then we can bring you up on the screen. This, no. This. I wonder if people can see you now. Can you see? Can you see Booksmarts? Oh yeah. Beautiful.
Is that a Nazi? Who's that? I feel like normally when people name drop something and they force me to Google it, it's always like Neo whatever nonsense.
Nah, it's not. I promise. John Berg is pretty cool, but I wouldn't say he's a conservative per se. At least I don't. Yeah, he was on Dylan's. I don't even think he identifies as a conservative. I might be wrong. Does John Burke identify as a conservative? I don't think so. I think he's just like a right winger, like a libertarian. Anyway, what's up, Booksmarts? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling strong.
Are you a gamer? Do you play games?
Not much now, but when I have time, yeah.
No. Are you like a console gamer or PC gamer or?
When I was in school and stuff, I was like pretty serious about console. Like we used to do like tournaments at Howie's and stuff like that. And then I started doing PC when I was a little bit older, and I guess that's still what I do.
Okay, not too bad. How do you feel about the games? Did you watch the reveal?
I saw a little bit of it. I mean, I try not to get too hyped on pre-release stuff just because I've been bitten so many times at games that look cool and they don't end up being that. So I try to wait until like release and then like good people have a chance to review it. Like not even like Kotaku and all those people, but like real YouTubers and stuff that I would trust.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get that 100%. I always get burned on like I don't know. Like fucking IGN, 10 out of 10 for like every single game or whatever. Yeah. It's
like if your shit's never like under 5, it's like then what's the point? Then just use a 5 out of 5 scale and give everything a 4. Like it just seems silly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get that. All right, well, actually, I think it was me who wanted to talk to you. Is that correct? Or we wanted to chat anyway. And actually, one of the things that I wanted, there's a few things. I guess first off, we kind of got into it a bit on a Relevance Discord. I think where we talked about sort of your talk with Destiny.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not to get too deep into it because I feel like we sort of covered the ground. But I kind of wanted to hear like, what is your thoughts on like, what do you want to do about the, I guess, the Destiny situation?
Wait it out.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think giving him like a couple of weeks and seeing where he takes it is probably better. And then like especially seeing how he handles his next big talks. I don't know who that's going to be with or what his schedule's like, but seeing how he handles his next big person, and then if there's any like glaring issues insofar as like a change of approach, maybe I would talk to him about it. But I think letting him do whatever on Twitter, the more I think about it, the more it's like, I do understand that there are negative repercussions for the community and for the people that parrot, whatever he's going to say. But realistically, from like an optics point of view, his Twitter's not even branded to be Destiny. It's like his third or fourth or whatever fucking one. If he just wants to be a shitter on there, I think other people can give him shit about it. I don't know if that's my place to do that anymore. I might just focus on his conversations and go from there. But
Sure.
also, the advice I give him moving forward might not just be rhetoric focused. Like, I might include some stuff about optics, like how people would interpret certain things, because I know he doesn't always take a step back to look at things from that perspective. But moving forward, maybe giving him more advice on, like, all right, if you want to be a shitter, like if you want to use worse tactics or whatever, maybe here's the way you can play that kind of guerrilla warfare game and still remain like principally consistent, or still appeal to the part of the audience that I think is interested in that kind of content. And I think that's the way our relationship might change moving forward.
That's interesting. Like I'm really curious about like what's your process for like arriving at these conclusions? Like how do you think about these things and like these talks?
So when I'm in the talk, the number one goal that I have is understanding them first, like enough to where I know where I can go from there. And for me, I draw the line of understanding at like, okay, if I was born in your body and I went through all your shit, could I like reasonably accept where I was at as far as conclusions, and could I see a path forward from there? And so in my discussion with him, once I hit that point, then I could ask more pointed questions that are like moving us a little bit. So like once I figured out that there are some emotional undercurrents to a lot of stuff, so like seeing people that are abandoning principles while wearing them on their sleeve succeeding, like that's bothering him a lot, to see that like people who are faking that they have principles or faking their positions, in his opinion, are able to succeed so much. And then on top of that, all the harassment and things like that. And then on top of that, he's getting flamed by his community and other communities for positions that he doesn't even hold because he's hyperbolic once or twice or whatever. And again, this is all his perspective. This isn't like me like validating any of that, because obviously I disagree with bits and pieces of it. But if that's his perception of all of that, then the logical conclusion is he needs to change something about his approaches to these conversations, or what I would hope more specifically, his approach to some of these content creators, and in the way he talks to them, to kind of maybe like find a way of conversing with them and interacting with them and calling out their ideas that isn't going to be seriously negative for his health, or isn't going to like trigger him to the point where he makes himself look bad in an argument, because that's not what he wants. But after that, then it's just a matter of like figuring out how I can like piece things into their existing system, to produce something that's maybe a little bit better. So if I understand, oh, here are your core principles, here's the way you're interpreting the situation, and then separate from that, I know my perspective and what I consider to be like the facts of it, then I have to like piece all that together in a way where I can paint a better picture. But that's kind of like the more difficult part to explain, because it depends on where people are at. Like in the talk that we had in Mindwave's channel, like several days after that, where Destiny hopped in and was doing a back and forth with everybody. One direction the conversation went in that I didn't want it to go in was about lying, and how he was saying doing things like using fake anecdotes and things like that were going to be tactics he was going to engage more in moving forward. And I wanted to go, okay, I know you're already going to do that. Your mind's made up on it. So I think it's going to be really, really difficult to convince you out of that. So where can I make compromise from that, having the little influence that I have? And that would be labeling those conversations and making it clear to him that there's still a large swath of the audience that is very interested in him, because he's principally consistent, and because they don't have to second guess everything he's saying. They don't have to look deeper into it because they're worried he's lying, or he's using debate tactics or this or that. There's a lot of people that appreciate that. And so if you're going to have conversations where you're going to play in the mud and you're going to get dirtier, I think that's fine. If that's what you need to engage with creators that you perceive as being bad faith, and he's at this level where he's been doing this for years and years and years, you can go through his entire backlog and figure out what he believes, he's in a unique situation compared to other streamers. So if he wants to do that, he's made his mind up about it. Labeling those conversations and being upfront with other creators about those tactics is probably for the best. So if, for instance, Hassan, he doesn't like Hassan, but I want to see him engage more with Hassan. I think it's of a benefit for him to engage with all sorts of people because I like those interactions. I think he does a good job of tempering other people's opinions when he's given the opportunity. And if the only way he can do that and stay mentally clear or healthy or whatever is to play in the mud and not feel like he's giving a ton of weight to the conversation or assuming the other person's principled, labeling those conversations and setting them aside as different, letting his community know why he's treating those creators differently, and then just being done with it. I think that's the mature way of handling it if we assume from the beginning he's going to engage in that. And then for people that are new or for people that are up and coming or whatever, he can be the same old Destiny because I don't think he has to be worried nearly as much about it. And once he sees that somebody maybe that they're starting to grow and they act differently, then again, he treats them like the other creators. Hey, this person's doing X, Y, and Z until we have a serious conversation where I feel like they address those problems, I'm not comfortable platforming them unless it's on my terms. And for my terms, I don't think they're being serious and I will not treat them seriously on here. And I think that's reasonable. That's his platform. He can choose to do that if he wants to. I think it's difficult for anybody to jump in and police him, as you guys figured out in that call. And so I think moving forward, if he ends up doing that, labeling those conversations would be like my recommendation. Though obviously that's like a half measure, and I can see how people would still be upset with that.
Yeah, I'm curious, like where you would draw the line of like quote unquote debate tactics or like being dishonest or whatever, because I don't ever think Destiny's just gonna straight up like lie about things in the way that like I would consider something to be a lie.
Yeah.
So we actually talked about this quite a bit, and I think there's a very obvious difference to me in terms of like making things up in terms of like rhetoric, like saying something in a different way because you think something is like in a more effective way to say it, like making up an anecdote or whatever. There's a difference between that and just like stating something that's like factually wrong.
Yeah, so like factual inaccuracies are going to be different than like making up a story or changing the way you present your opinion, for sure.
Yeah.
And I would argue that like the latter part, I think most people wouldn't consider lying, to be honest.
Okay. Because that's what at least that's what I got from like what he was saying, right? Like his example, like one of the examples that he gave was that he wanted to
he did
like
advocate
challenge...
for real lies though, so it might be worth noting that as well.
So what do you think he advocated for?
So one of the things that I think crossed the line into being an actual lie is doing something like challenging a source with authority when you haven't read the source. So like when he said, but that source doesn't even say that, it says this, or hey, that source doesn't even say that, period. When you haven't read the source or you haven't engaged with it, I would say that that's like a factual lie. And so when he said stuff like that, that's when I started cringing, because then we get into weirdo territory. Whereas like if you want to make up an anecdote, I think there's a way of doing that that's fine, and I think there's a way of doing that that's not fine. So for instance, if you tell me, well, my uncle in the police department actually was telling me that they do X, Y, and Z in their training, and you make that up, I think that's a factual lie. But if you tell me, but what about the people in the police department that are saying their training is X, Y, and Z? That might not be a lie. That's a lot closer to the blurry line. And if you want to step on the right side of the blurry line, I think you could say something like, but I thought some people in the police department don't receive training on X, Y, and Z. I thought, where you're being clear about your not knowing if that's true or not and simply presenting the idea for the argument to do with it what it will, I think that's not a lie, right? Because you didn't say anything definitively and you were just putting something into the ether for everybody to bounce off of. So if somebody thinks that's incorrect, they can say so just as much as they can say it's correct and go from there. But I would say that's where we can see like, that's an example of like the gradient where like we've crossed the line, we're kind of blurry and we're on it. And then I don't think this is a lie at all. And so moving forward, if he starts engaging in that, that's the kind of advice I would give him, is anytime we start going into the fuzzy or we go into the bad, then I'll step in and I'll be like, hey, when you did this and it was factually inaccurate, when you crossed that line, I don't think you had to. And here are two alternatives that could either be fuzzy or could have been on the right side, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's gonna take away from his like from what he does if he starts like saying like making up stuff as you explain it?
Yes. But, and this is something that was echoed in the conversation, if that's the decision you want to make, you just have to weigh that out, you know?
Yeah.
I think for him uniquely, his brand, and I'm not sure if he's aware of this, but I think he is now that he got the response from the community and on his Reddit and in donations and whatever, that there is a large part of the community that support him precisely because he stays on top of his stuff and he stays principled.
Yeah, maybe.
And we get into the weird questions that I tried to explore and was unable to because it was emotion driving a lot of this. Like questions like, are you okay with being the 15th biggest streamer if it means that you stayed principled? And if you could abandon the principles to be the number one, is that what you're looking for? And he's like, well, no, not really. I mean, I would be fine with being it's like, okay, well, the responses you're giving me logically to a lot of this stuff implies that there's something else driving this decision. And I think that it's a well of like emotions and other stuff that he has to process. And I think the reason all that's coming up is because he's having to rethink some of his principles, or at the very least rethink some of the ways which he communicates with and platforms other people. Now that he's kind of been through the lefty arc and done all this stuff, I think he's going to come out of it different, and I'm interested in seeing what kind of different that is. I don't know if we'll know immediately.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, what do you, like, if you were in his position, I don't know if you were able to, like, answer, like, if you were in his position, what would you do? Like, what would be your, like, first steps to take?
So, this is really difficult because I don't know what all that harassment would be like. And I don't know how much that would ruin me. And if I went through that for years and years and years and they threatened my child and, my ex and all that kind of stuff, I think that would have a big impact. And I don't know what it would be. But if I was like advisor to Destiny, whatever, I would say that like immediately deplatforming these people would be the very first step, which he took, which is like, okay, no more of this content on my thing. And the way that I would roll that out is like, here are the reasons for that. Here are the conditions in which I'll have another conversation with them that's serious, and these are the topics we would need to cover and work through before I feel comfortable continuing to give my platform to these people. Because I think that that's the one bit of leverage that he has. And even once people get larger than him, he's saying that they're riding a wave and that he doesn't think he's making the waves. And if they're riding a wave, then there will come a time when they enter the trough, right? And so with somebody like Hassan or something else, if he's honestly convinced that he's riding a wave of something like socialism or leftyism or whatever, then eventually Hassan will go into the trough, right? Eventually Hassan will probably come back to him. Eventually Hassan will not have all of the benefits that he could trade in for principled positions. And I keep saying Hassan, I don't even know if this is the case. I don't really watch Hassan. But basically he'll be faced with that choice. And the benefits for abandoning his principles won't exist anymore because he'll be at the bottom of the trough. So unless he chooses to switch to something else, unless all these people shift to something else, they're not going to be able to sustain much of anything, right? Whereas Destiny, if he remains consistent through everything, he's building an audience for a different reason that all these other people are building audiences. He has a steady and consistent viewership that's interested in something that's different than just what everybody else is interested in the moment. And I think learning to let go and accept that there will be plus and minus on that's going to be coming from trends and from what other people say and the influence of other creators. I think coming to terms with that and accepting that is probably necessary to move forward in like a healthy way. And so, building on that, deplatforming these people, being okay with not being involved in conversations that are going to have large viewership, or doing so in a responsible way that like keeps you mentally sane. I would say It should be what he does. And then after that, after he chooses not to talk to these people anymore, making sure he's honest and consistent with his audience about why that is and what's going on. And if he needs to, covering what they're saying and breaking it down without being able to engage with them. Like, for instance, Ben Shapiro. He's never going to be able to talk to Ben Shapiro, but he spent quite a bit of time dissecting his arguments and trying to put something out there so that that audience, if they're interested, can see counter arguments to that and can engage with content that is critical of Ben Shapiro in what I would consider to be like a really effective way. So being that for other creators that you don't think are being genuine is still an important role that I think Destiny serves in the community. Even if he doesn't get to interact one-on-one with them, whether by choice or by, natural events, I just think continuing to put out content about those people and breaking down their arguments is still really important. So I would say he should continue to do that.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, like I've done some thinking about it as well, in terms of like what I would do in that situation, and I honestly think it's just so hard. Like I don't even I wouldn't even know where to start, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think he for sure can't continue to engage with them. I think we could say that would be really unhealthy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree.
And that's why, like, the only step I could think of that would be the first one is to discontinue that. It doesn't need to continue to happen. Yeah.
Okay. What else? So actually, the big reason why I wanted to talk to you is actually because I think I'm sort of going through some interesting stuff right now, which is in some ways, I guess a bit similar to what Destiny's going through, maybe. In other ways, obviously not, because I'm not like even close to being the same size. But I sort of find myself in a situation where, at least from my perspective, it seems like that I've like pissed off like a few people, and it seems like those people are trying their very hardest to sort of ruin things for me. And I'm just sitting here and sort of trying to figure out like what is the best way that I could move forward, sort of from this situation. And yeah, so I don't know if you, I guess if you know what I'm talking about, or like if you
I've heard it. Is it the thing with the RAR people?
Oh yeah. Well, not them, only them specifically, but it seems like, at least from my end, I talked to somebody else about it like yesterday night, for quite a few hours. I don't know. It's super hard because from my perspective, I honestly feel like people just didn't or don't have an interest in like giving me a chance. Like they don't even like they aren't even like. They don't even care about me, right? And like I'm not saying they should necessarily. Obviously that's their choice. But but like for my own sake, and I guess for my own interest, I'm curious, like how do you make people care about you if they're only interested in like, I don't know, hurting you or whatever? Like how do I remedy like a relationship like that?
I guess there would be a couple of different ways. So the first one I would think of is understanding why it is that they hold that animosity. Because it may just be that they have a misunderstanding of some factual event that occurred. Or it could be something as simple as like one person is saying a bunch of shit. It's difficult to know what the root cause is, and the cause may be something so simple that you could fix it through like a brief DM or conversation in private. So I think figuring out where that animosity is coming from would be where I would start. And then based on what happens with that, you would know where to move forward from there. But the other way of going about it would be to, and this is something I told Destiny said I'm naive about. This is something that works in real life, and I've had a lot of positive like feedback from people putting this into, putting this into effect in their own life, but I don't know how this works out on Twitch. But reaching out to these creators and being wholeheartedly honest about the situation that they're creating for you, not focusing on the individual actions that they're doing, but focusing only on the results as you understand them. So saying things like, I feel like you've taken away my voice, or I feel like I've lost my voice because I can't engage in these things, or like if you feel like you're being left out of something that you could contribute a lot to, saying things like, I wish I could be a part of this thing, or like I feel like I could be really beneficial to this thing, but there are like artificial barriers that I feel like you and others are putting in front of me that's like stopping me from being able to do this, and just leveling with them. And I dip a little bit into talking about how their actions caused that, but as much as you can, just focusing on what you're 100% aware of, which is how it's affecting you. So saying however it is that you feel. So if that's, you feel like you're being deplatformed, you feel like you're losing your voice, you feel like they're not giving you a chance, you feel like they're not hearing you out, whatever that problem is, just being honest with them about it. Because at the very least, even if they respond negatively to you in the moment or dismissive to you, the next time that their friends say stuff like that, or the next time they're put in a situation where they're given the choice to engage in that or not, you'll be in the back of their mind. And I think that that's helpful. I think for all the people I've talked to who have disengaged from harassment or disengaged from bullying, or taking a step back from like racist jokes or whatever, a lot of the time the driving factor behind that was the gnawing pain of knowing that you're going to hurt somebody. And that's not real until it's given a voice. And if that voice has to be you in the DMs being honest about how that's like impacting you day to day, or, you know, a comment they read on YouTube that's saying something like, damn, he was so sweet and like this thing happened and I feel so bad about it, you know, whatever that is, but putting that voice there, because if it's not, they'll never know, you know, if you're never like reaching out to them in private, or if you never create that voice, then it's never going to be there. And so that's another good step to take, I would say. And I think you could do the two in tandem, where you're reaching out and asking, why is it that there's this animosity? Look, I'm feeling this way about it. I don't know exactly what it is that I did to cause this, but like, it's having such an impact that I'm interested in knowing why it is that you guys feel this way, and so that I can figure out if there's anything I can do about it, you know? Because the other thing is thinking from their perspective. If you're harassing and making fun of someone and all this other stuff, and then he reaches out to you in the DMs and is like, hey, like, I don't know why this is happening. Like, is there something I did? Could I talk to you about this? Stuff like that. All of a sudden, it's really uncomfortable to be the bully. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, like, yeah, dude, like, you know, whatever. And, you know, they're going to be dodgy or maybe dismissive, or they're going to feel uncomfortable at first. But I think that gnaws at people. And if they continue to ignore that over time, then I think that says more for their character. And it might help you to like diffuse a lot of the ways you're feeling about it. So like, I've reached out to this person in private. I've spilt my heart out to this person. Like, you know, my community has reached out to them. My community's been kind to them. And like, you know, if all of that doesn't work, then they don't care. And then you know for sure. And then you can become more solid in that opinion of them and steer clear of them, because there are going to be people in life that are going to treat you that way. And if that's the case, I think the most healthy thing is to disengage from them, and to find better people to replace the spot that they were going to fill. And that's unfortunate. You don't want it to come to that. The burning the bridges thing is like something you never want to get to. Like, one thing I think I said in a previous conversation was that's like the nuclear option for me. When I go into a conversation, a losing condition is having a bridge burnt or feeling like I can't talk to that person anymore. So whatever I can do to save that, I try. I understand other people, that's not healthy advice. So like if they're in an abusive thing or this or that and they have to disengage, that's reasonable too. But I hope that helps. Did any of that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, ultimately, I don't know. Ultimately, for me, it's sort of a mixture, or for me, it feels like a mixture of like how much effort I feel like I should be doing versus like how much effort should I, like, can I realistically be expected to do, like to mend like a relationship like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a bit hard because I mean, especially if I feel like I've already like made an effort to sort of mend the relationship and it's not being reciprocated or whatever. Then it's like, well, do I keep trying or do I just ignore like these people or whatever, like to the best of my ability?
Yeah. I
but
think it's worth going back to the first piece.
To the first piece?
To the understanding where the animosity is coming from in that case then. Because it sounds like you've at least in part tried number 2. I don't know if you've been fully honest about the way it's impacted you emotionally or day to day, which I think is a lot more compelling for a lot of people. Because there are people in their own community that make them feel that way. You know, there are other creators, I'm sure, that make them feel that way. And the idea that they're perpetuating that or creating that situation for others, that can start to wear on them. But understanding where that animosity is coming from might be a good step too, because then you can figure out if it's something even worth diffusing, like you said, or if it's, you know, something that is not even personal to you. So for instance, with the RAR thing, I don't know a lot about it, so I'm just going to come up with a hypothetical that might be like a little bit related. If they wanted to create an environment where the streamers that were involved in that were not going to be combative to like some of the core ideas or principles or whatever, then it would make sense that they don't invite people that they feel like are generally critical of things that they disagree with or are not willing to fall into line nearly as much on stuff. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm saying, for instance, if that was the case, it would make sense that they wouldn't choose you, right? Because you're known for debating. You're known for being honest about what you think about things. When you hear something you disagree with, you don't let it just bounce off of you. You're going to say something. And if they're trying to avoid people like that, it would make sense that they don't bring them on. So if you learn it's a reason.
Just to be clear specifically, like I'm not that like interested in going on. The only thing that I'm sort of really I guess annoyed by is that it's kind of weird like listening to like random podcasts and panel shows and then suddenly out of nowhere I'll be brought up and somebody will just like in an offhand comment say, oh, Dario, he's a fucking grifter or whatever. And I'm just like, I'm like there's no like this topic wasn't even about me. It was just like a random topic or like talking about the riots or whatever, and then somebody will just randomly say it. And I'm just like, why? Why would you bring me up of like all people? And I guess maybe
really upsetting.
Yeah, or like maybe I just have a hard time understanding like how I of all people can like piss people off to like that extent, because it's a bit weird. Like I guess I'm trying to sort of think a bit about like what I have done, like the things that I've done, and like why I have been like specifically annoying to like some people, or like what makes I guess part of me like specifically I guess upsetting to deal with for some people. This isn't the first time either. Like even somebody like a central committee like Mike from Pia or whatever. Like I also feel like he specifically is like super angry at me in a way that I haven't seen him like be angry at like other like smaller streamers. And I'm just like, I guess I don't know. Like, is it something that I do like specifically, or like is it something that I can change? And like I don't know. It's
Have you had a chance to reach out to them?
No, I don't think so.
Because I guess it sounds like the first kind of solution where you're able to conceptualize what it is exactly that's making other people upset is probably where you want to go with it. Because it doesn't sound. It sounds like a lot of the issues are stemming from like, I don't even know why this is coming, so I don't even know how to process it. Like,
yeah,
I don't know why I'm getting brought up or why the labels are being put on me this way. And one thing that might be worth mentioning, because I'm not giving any whatever to that side of things so far. Like when you guys say stuff like they're LARPers or stuff like that, I think they may feel similarly to when they say you're a grifter, right? And so it could just be that you said one or two things that upset them, and now that greenlit them to say all this other stuff. Like, one thing that Destiny has in his like values is if somebody says something like you're a gamer or this or that, or they attack his job, or they cross any of these imaginary lines, he goes full nuclear with them. Then he says you're nepotistic and this and that. Like, he'll, all the filters are off. So if what you learn is that you passed the little trigger and that let them open the floodgates, whether they were true or not, then you can process that a little more. Then it's like, oh, okay, at least I know what I did, and at least I know how you're going to respond. Like, you're just going to go full force, whether that's true or not or whatever. So it might help to learn where they're coming from on that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's fair. Fuck, I just wish people would tell me, honestly, because I feel like I've gone like whenever I have a chance to like speak to like some of these people, I'll go and I'll be pretty straightforward. I'll be like, hey, like, I honestly don't know what I've done. Like, can you at least tell me like why you're so upset about me or whatever? And it's the same response every time. They'll just like snap back and be like, oh, you're a fucking grifter or whatever. Get the fuck out. Like, you're just trying to grift in here or something like that.
It has to be in private, Dario. I would not do that in public. You have to reach out privately.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do that in public at all. Because the other thing is, you don't know what that is yet. So if that has something to do with their public whatever, their public appearance, and they're protecting themselves in that way, you're never going to get the answer by reaching out in public, because that's the whole stem of it, and so I would reach out in private for sure.
Sure. Yeah, maybe. I feel so awkward like reaching out in private, because I'm like, I don't know, I don't even know like what to write. It's just like, hey, you fucking hate me. Why? Like, why do you fucking hate me? I don't know.
Well, I'm a loser, so that's why I like to open up with like what I know for sure and what I can describe the best, which is like how I feel about it. So like, hey, like it's been really gnawing at me lately that it seems like there's this disconnect between us. Or like, hey, like I caught this stream and I felt like I felt like you're really upset at me, and it makes me really uncomfortable, and I don't feel like I have that relationship with anybody else. So if I'm doing something that's upsetting, I really want to know what it is. And if they tell you, oh no, it's nothing, whatever, it's like, well, no, like, I don't think I've explained this well enough to you. Like, this is on my mind every day. Like, every time I hop on, people are telling me this, that, or the other, and it's like, I just want to know where that's coming from. What's really bothering me is I don't even have any idea. I think that there's something I could do to improve it, that there's something that I can change, but not knowing what that is like anxiety hell for me. And I would just appreciate like knowing what, hearing it from the horse's mouth, and I think that that's something that they could understand. And maybe like, offering the olive branch, like, if you want to talk in private about it, I'm happy to, because like, that's all I'm interested in. All I want to do is know, because if there's something I can change, I'm really interested in changing. And like, when they hear all this, it's creating a situation where they feel that they're comfortable telling you whatever that is, right? It's like, okay, he's interested in change. He recognizes that like, I'm upset for a reason. I'm not just like shitting on him for no reason. And he's coming here with the willingness to hear me out on it. He's coming to me in private. All of these things create a situation where they're going to be a lot more comfortable to tell you what's going on. And so I think creating that situation for them is going to be really, really good. Whereas like in public, if they have a persona to defend, or if they've said shit on stream that their viewers are going to hold them to account for, or if they're being held hostage by a Reddit that will attack them if they say anything kind about you, it's really difficult to know why they're acting that way. And until you have a better idea in private, where there's nobody else listening, there's nobody else influencing that conversation, it's really difficult to know what that actually is. Like, I found a lot of streamers in private are a lot easier to communicate with about this stuff than in public, because there's a lot less to lose in private. Especially if it's a public issue. If it's because of how the public perceives you, or perceives a conversation with you, or perceives them for doing it, like, if any of that is the case, then you will never get the answer, and that's what makes the public thing impossible.
Yeah. I guess I'm just curious as well, like, I guess I would be really curious, like what specifically it is that like people have issues with me about. Because like if I don't know, like if I don't even know specifically like what it is, like then I couldn't even change it, like even if I wanted to, right? So it's super strange.
Yeah. And
'Cause
until you know what it is, you don't even know how to move forward.
yeah, because lately I feel like it's just like the strangest things. It's like people will come on and they'll just start yelling at me for something that somebody else said in the same call, and I'll just be like, I literally didn't say like these things. It was somebody else, and I'm just like I don't like I can't even imagine, like I cannot empathize with sort of that situation at all. Like I've never been in that situation myself. Where I will be like, I don't know, I'll be pissed off at somebody, and it's like I would actually be pissed off at somebody else, like completely different. It wouldn't even like be that person. I don't know. It's so strange. Like maybe I just have a hard time like understanding like some kinds of people. Maybe I don't know. It's
Like, one difficult thing is that the personalities and the platform and being live and whatever magnifies the way that people feel like they have to portray themselves or portray their emotions or how they feel about people. So even if they dislike you at like a 2 out of 10 level, if they're on stream, people don't get it till it's at least a 5 out of 10. And people don't think it's funny till it's an 8 out of 10. And some people don't even think you're going hard enough until it's a 9 or 10 out of 10. And so all of these expectations in the public can magnify really what the disagreement is. And like I said before, the other thing could be that it's one or two people that are kind of controlling everybody else, right? It could very easily be that like, well, you make so-and-so in this group uncomfortable, or like, I don't personally have a problem with you, but so-and-so does, and they're my homie, and I got to support them. I got to back them up, especially if we're going to be in a group. And if it's something like that, then you know where to go from there. Then it's like, okay, I don't even have to feel bad that you're treating me this way. Maybe I can feel like that's unethical. You shouldn't be bullying me like that. If you don't even think that that's the case, you can think that, but at least then you know it's not this person. It's this one person, or it's these two people, or it's something else. It's not them. And that can help a lot with like processing what goes on. And the more people you reach out to with this opinion, the more people that you extend the olive branch to, the more people then talk in private about it. Hey, Dario DM me. What did he DM you about? Oh, he DM'd me because he said he was feeling bad that we did this thing, or we left him out, or we did this, or we did that. Oh, he reached out to me too. Oh, was he a dick about it? No, he was like, he said he was feeling bad about it. He said that like he wanted to know what was going on. He wanted to change. Like, damn. And then they start feeling bad. You know, it's tough to keep that up.
dude, do conversation ever do these conversation ever happen, or is this just like your I don't know.
So I do like conflict resolution and stuff like that too, as a part of like the other papers and things that I've written, and it tends to be a good way of doing things because it's like reverse rumors, right? The same rumor that can start to make you awful and to make you hated in the eyes of all these people, that same process can be used for like a viral happy thought that can go through everybody, or a viral bit of good information about Dario. Like every community that I've spoken to has been really respectful towards me, and I think that's because I'm nothing but kind and respectful in my conversations, like both in public and in private with all these people. And even if I said one or two things that were like off key or off color or whatever, I think people have enough respect or an understanding of me to then reach out and be like, hey, you said this, and I don't feel like that represented you. Or if all of a sudden a community started treating me poorly, it would be like a red flag as to like why that's happening. But yeah, I honestly do think that like people talk. And if you're already the topic of conversation, if there's new info, if you actually DM them, that's a big thing to bring up. That's a big thing that everybody's going to talk about. And so I think you would be surprised at how that information trickles down. And like I said before, even if they don't spread that information around, it's gnawing at the back of their head. I assume that most people have empathy, and that's something that like cuts both ways, you know? If you put it into their head that like hey, this is making me upset, and I'm making it known to you, then that's a memory they have. Then that's something that they know of you. And the next time they think of you, that comes up alongside the other things that make them, lash out at you or harass you or do all these other things. And at some point, I would like to hope that in most people, one of those sides wins out.
Interesting. I'm curious.
I may be naive, I
No,
may be
yeah,
naive.
no. I mean, no. I think that's fair. I guess I'm curious. Like, I would be super curious to see like if something like that would actually work. Because like my like initial assumption would just be like, I don't know, these people will just tell me to like fuck off or whatever, or I'll get like the same response that I usually get.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of them, right? Like a lot of these people.
Well, maybe, yeah. I mean, it's hard to say like how many there are, because I do really suspect that it's a case of like that there's like one or two people who are like really upset about me for some reason, and those people are sort of kind of like poisoning the well for the rest of the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It's tough. It like in your situation right now, and I keep repeating this, but it's especially tough because you have no concept of like what is really causing that at all. It's really tough because you don't even know where to begin with it. And that's why I think getting to the bottom of at least the kind of problem that it is would help you out a lot. Like if it's an optics issue, then that's one thing. If it's one thing that you said, that's an entirely different thing. If it's one person that dislikes you, that's another thing. Like, but all of these are way better than not knowing, And if there's enough people, I think DMing all of them, at least one of them is going to respond to you in some way that'll be okay, And if they don't, they have friends, right? And if they're talking about you and this is something that you're noticing, I'm sure that other people that are like related to them have probably heard about it too. So if you have an in-between or somebody that you feel comfortable with or you feel like would be more receptive to you, I think you can reach out to them and they can reach out to the other people on your behalf as well. And that's another way of going about it. But I'm pretty convinced that you'll find one of the streamers that are harassing you that will be willing to talk about it. And I keep saying harass. I use that as a very broad word, but that's because I think it's more indicative of the way it's making you feel and the result that it has. Sure. Even if the actions from their point of view might not be that.
Sure. Okay. I'll try. I think I'll try something like that at least, and we'll see what happens. For sure. Okay. Well, I think that's good enough for now, at least. Because I gotta talk to actual intelligence. You know who he is, right?
I gave him a little bit of advice on communicating with radical people. Yes.
Oh, that's cool. All right, cool. Well, hey, do you wanna shout yourself out?
Sure. I'm Booksmarts on Twitch. My name's Noah. If you guys are ever interested in discussions like this one, where I'm just kind of, if people are having intrapersonal problems, between each other.
Yeah, you're my marriage counselor.
Maybe. I also do talks on, rhetoric and optics as well. If you guys are interested in any of that or want to see more talks like this, the Discord's probably better than my Twitch, honestly. I'll update there in the updates channel when I'm talking to somebody like Dario and I'm not going to stream it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it wasn't too naive because it's my most common criticism and one that I'm working on. Is I understand it comes off as naive, but I think the reality is for most adults that have put this into place, they realize it works in the real world. Like Destiny was like, this 100% will work like 90% of the time in the real world. But in Twitch, it just may not. So I'll work on that over time and I'll be better for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I think if there's one thing, I guess I don't even want to say it's like a criticism or whatever, because I don't even think it's like actually a criticism. It's more
Sure.
of like a maybe like an optics thing. Like as
Mhm.
somebody who deals with like these issues, and I'm sure like Destiny probably feels similarly. Um,
Mhm.
it can sometimes be hard, because it feels like you're not necessarily like talking about like these specific situations. Do you know what I mean? Like you're coming at it from like a different perspective, or at least it feels like that. Um,
Mm.
and like I honestly I do think that there is merit to what you say regardless, and like I think there's merit to like the way that you speak about it, because I do think that there's a sizable portion of people who do understand it the way that you do. um, but yeah, I feel like whenever I talk to you, you have like a very particular way of like going about these conversations, or like understanding like these things. Yeah, maybe try and like try and go around that maybe sometimes. I don't know. Maybe that's helpful. Maybe not. I don't know.
Mm.
Um,
So, like for this conversation, going around like reaching out to the streamers directly, for instance, like giving you something you could do on your own stream to combat it, or
yeah. So like for example, like my initial reaction would be that because I feel like I've already tried reaching out to them. Obviously, I guess not in private. That is a good point. I do feel like I mean, yeah, sure. But I do feel like I've reached out to these people, or at least some of them, and I've just basically either gotten the cold shoulder, or like they'll just call me a grifter and like say whatever, and keep like doing what they do. Um,
yeah. Because the
so
grifter thing in particular, like it's a criticism of your public self, and so when you try to address a criticism of your public self in the public realm, it can like even more feed into the grifting thing. Like it seems like he wants attention about the fact that we say he only wants attention or something like that.
yeah,
That's why I think the private thing is so important in this one. But I do
yeah,
understand
maybe,
what you're saying, yes.
yeah, sure. All right, cool. Thank you very much, and I guess I'll see you around for sure.
Bye guys. Have a good stream.
All right.